time machine is waiting.
Questions, questions, questions! I need answers, answers!
Hello, Buddy Crow here, and it's time for more questions and answers. This time we're going to do one question from Jaden B, who asked, what is the story about time machine pinball? Where you got it, how you got it, and some history on it. Well, I got the time machine about 3 years ago. In fact, that was about 3 years ago to the date, September 2011. And I'm going to put a link to a lot of the videos I made at the time about the time machine when I picked it up and everything. But let's make a condensed version of that right now, right here. And you can go back and check those videos if you're interested in seeing what this thing looked like back then. Let's see, 2011. This was the first pinball machine I got. And I had been thinking about getting a pinball machine for some time, and I had been going on to Craigslist just searching pinball in the area and seeing what popped up. Well, one day what popped up was a garage sale that simply said they had a pinball machine. No other details other than that. And I got kind of excited, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go Saturday, blah, 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 blah. And then after I looked at the ad again, I was like, oh, shoot, you know what? This garage sale starts Friday morning. I got to go to work. I'm not going to take off work to go to a garage sale just to, you know, see what kind, because there were no details. The thing could have been a piece of crap, you know, something we didn't want. And they didn't have a price in the Craigslist ad on it either. So it turned out my wife was like, well, I'm not working Friday. I'll go and I'll look. So sure, Friday comes. My wife goes down to the garage sale bright and early, asks about the pinball machine, and turns out they had a flyer, like a sign or something like that, because they had, you know, everything out by the garage because it was a garage sale. And but the pinball machine was still in the house, like in the basement, because they weren't going to pull it out just for a garage sale, you know. So my wife asked to see it. They were asking like $400 for it, and my wife asked to see it, and you know, they turn it on. It works, and so, you know, it turns on and apparently works. Let's just say that. My wife calls me while I'm at work and says, you know, they have this. It's pretty cool. It's called Time Machine. Do you think we should get it? And I went onto the internet. I looked at Internet Pinball Database, and I searched Time Machine. And I looked at the first entry that popped up, and the site is kind of laid out differently than it was back then. But I very vividly remember Time Machine popping up, except it wasn't this Time Machine. You see, there's more than one pinball machine called Time Machine. Two kind of very well-known ones, and the one that came up first was one called From Data East from 1988. And I saw it, and I was like, wow, that looks pretty cool. Yeah, go ahead, get it. And then my wife actually managed to talk them down to about $300 or $275. I can't remember about what she wound up getting the deal for. And she goes, yeah, we got the pinball machine. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I may have to, you know, and she said that we could pick it up tomorrow, which would be Saturday. Well, my wife works Saturday, so I had to go get some of my friends, who did not live nearby. All my friends still live in Naperville, so it's about 20-30 miles away from them. But I had to somehow get people and a way to transport it in less than a day. And but then my wife was talking, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's purple and it's got this old guy's head." I'm like, that's not what I saw. I saw something completely different with like a flying car, and turned out. I looked again, and it turned out, oh, there's another one called Time Machine. I'm like, this one's by Zachariah. I've never heard of that company. The whole thing kind of looked unfamiliar to me. Now, granted, I was brand new into pinball, but I did know at the time, you know, the major manufacturers, and that's like Bally Williams, Stern, why am I having such a hard time thinking? Data East, Gottlieb, and yeah, so those are the main ones. And I heard Zachariah, and I complete blanked in my mind. I had no idea what it was. So I'll get to that later. Let's get to the story where I'm So I managed to gather 2 friends. I managed to rent a U-Haul truck, which the U-Haul renting station isn't that close to here, so I had to go and set it up. Then when my friends showed up, my 2 friends drove together in the same car. I had them drive me to the U-Haul station. I picked up and rented my truck by the hour. It didn't take that long. I wound up only spending like $50 altogether on the truck rental, and I never even filled it up with gas since I remember the needle being still past the full mark when I returned the truck. But we went to truck, and I told them where it was. Just follow me, and we went to the house, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here for the pinball machine, and blah 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 blah. And they're like, okay, cool. Of course, I proved who I was, because anybody, random person just showing up, picking up their pinball machine. But I didn't know what to expect, really. I knew that the newer ones had the head that folded down. This one did not do that. You have to actually unbolt it, unhook everything. So we took the legs off, and we're like, well, we think we could get it up the stairs and just throw it in the truck. I remember it was a tight squeeze going through that basement. But I remember getting halfway up the stairs and not being able to make a turn because the body was too wide. And the only way to do it would be to flip it up and kind of spin it around the door. Unfortunately, the head was still attached, and we couldn't do it with the head attached. So while it was on the stairs, I remember having to detach the head, and with only taking like a couple rough pictures of the inside, disconnecting everything. Actually, I don't even think I took any pictures because I was kind of in a hurry because my friend's trying to hold it up, and here I am trying to disassemble it on the stairs. So just ripped all the wires out that I find, throw it in. I was like, I'll worry about this later. Threw it all in there, and detached the head, took the head out separately. Then we were able to get it out, put it in the van, drive it to my house. By the way, it wasn't that far. I mean, this place is only like in the next town over. That's one of the reasons we went. It was really close. It was about a 5-minute drive, I think. So, my friend, he puts the glass for the head in his car, and everything else goes in the U-Haul truck. It was really a truck. It was like a U-Haul van. So we get it to my house, and as soon as my friend comes out the door, he's like, hey, do you need me much longer? I just realized I'm supposed to have lunch with somebody. And it was like noon already, and I already promised to treat them to lunch. And I'm like, wait a minute, you need to go now? I need help with this. I need help. And he had the car. I was like, how am I supposed to return this truck? Or this van or whatever. I'm like, can you wait like 15 minutes so we can throw this stuff in the house and throw this, the pinball stuff in the house, and you could help drive with me to the U-Haul station so we can drop off this truck and you could drive me back, so we have no problem with that, because otherwise it'd be like, an hour and a half walk to the U-Haul station, I think. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it seems pretty far. It seems like a pretty far walk. And I wanted to get this thing set up. So he agreed to that, and he was going to be late for his lunch anyway, because the person was calling him asking where he was, whoever he was meeting for lunch. But I was like, okay, my other friend, he wants to be played. My other friend was, I'm like, you know what, if you could stay, I'll drive you back home. That's not a big deal. And he's like, okay. So he stayed. I gave him lunch, free lunch. And we set up this machine. Now, this machine, I think the previous owners were the original owners from 1983. The story I heard is that they had won the lottery back then. Not maybe a big prize, but this was one of the things they bought. So it had all the manuals. I know the technician who worked on the sole technician that worked on this whenever they had a problem. He lives in DeKalb, actually, which is where I went to college. And DeKalb was about an hour drive away from here. He'll come into play later. So I hooked this thing all up together. We had the manual and everything. I was able to harness everything up by being able to tell in the manual where it's supposed to go. And we turned it on. And the rubbers on this thing really needed to be replaced. They were really falling apart. In fact, one of them had fallen apart. But that didn't stop us from turning it on and playing it a little bit. Later on in the day, I found that the sound wasn't working right. And also, there's a countdown timer in this thing, and it wasn't working right. I was kind of having problems with it. So I'm like, well, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Is later on, I'm going to take this whole thing apart, clean it up, and solve any remaining issues. Now, those issues weren't actually resolved for like another year and a half, actually. There were like, two of the flippers on here weren't from this machine. They were actually from 2 different machines. So I had like flippers in here from 3 different types of machines. Really, I mean, the 2 flippers did not match at all. It didn't make any sense. And I could see why they were interested in selling it. They weren't playing it anymore. It had been just sitting there. So I fixed what I could. The playfield is really good condition. Most of the pieces and everything cleaned up really nicely. I remember wiping this thing down. It was just dirt everywhere. But, you know, just cleaning up the dirt, everything kind of fairly remained intact. But I still had a couple of issues remaining. One of the key features of these Zaccaria machines is the 4th bonus ball. During your 3rd ball, you earn time for a 4th bonus ball. And when you lose the 3rd ball, there's a countdown timer that goes, that counts down. And when that time is up, your game is over. Zaccaria, that was like a feature of the Zaccaria machines that no other pinball machine had at the time. Well, I don't know of any other machine that has kind of like a scenario like that. I mean, and Zaccaria did make a bunch of machines in this series, but what was happening, one of the things that's happening was that the countdown timer wasn't going down, and what that was causing was the game never to end. Also, the sound was kind of messed up. The music, the guy's voice was fine, but the music was kind of messed up. And there's a platform in here that goes up and down, which actually changes the play field. But at the start of every ball, the play field is supposed to start up. But while I was playing, every end of ball, the platform would just keep moving. If it was in the up position, it would move down. If it was in the down position, move up. So that was a problem, and I never actually resolved these issues myself. Now, this guy in DeKalb, who originally worked on the machines, turns out he's an expert on these Zaccaria machines. And I contacted him through his website, which was Zaccaria Pinball, and I'll put a link to that in the description. And you can see all the different Zaccaria machines. And I sent him an email saying, you know, I'm having these problems, but instead of mailing you the boards, because he had a service where he checked the boards and everything, I was saying, instead of mailing the boards, would it be possible if I could just drop them off at your house or something? And he agreed to that, and we drove out to DeKalb, sorry, not Naperville. And I took the 4 boards out of here, and I took them all with me. And he was a nice guy. He let me in, and he showed me around his basement. He had a whole bunch of Zaccaria pinball machines, and he had his own homemade Zaccaria board tester. He could hook up any board and check all the stats and everything on it. What was funny was that he already did work on these boards. He put his initials on the board, and that's how he's like, oh yeah, I've worked on these. My initials are on them, blah blah blah. And we couldn't really determine what the problem was offhand. So he's like, well, if you leave the boards with me, which was what I was expecting to do anyway, I'll do some more looking around when I have time, and get back to you when I find them. So if I find the issue. So I left the boards with him, and you know, about a month later he contacts me. He's like, yeah, it looks like one of the sound chips, what was it? The thing that sits in the chip. I can't even think of it right now. But it had a loose solder joint. It was sometimes connecting, sometimes wasn't, and it was just getting worse. So he replaced it, and it worked fine. And he said, you know what, I'm going to be in the area on this day, or will you be home? I'm like, yeah, I'll be home. It was like Saturday. So it's like, because he had some other call to do. And then he stopped by, and he's like, oh, this is a lot closer than I thought. And he put the boards back in. Sound worked great. But I told him about the other issue I had with the platform going up and down, and the countdown timer not going down. And he's like, okay, well, let me see. And he started like working on my machine. And it turned out both those things were caused by a trigger where when the ball drains, there's a thing in there that detects, and it's like it's a switch, but for some reason it was hitting the switch and then letting go. So it would know that the ball drained, but then not know the ball was there. for some reason. And that's why the platform kept going up and down. That's why the countdown timer never went down, is because it didn't realize the ball was in play. So quick adjustment, he fixed that, and then the thing was working perfectly. He also had to put in, to experiment, put in a custom ROM that he made that turns this thing into free play, because there was no free play option on this machine. And he took a switch that was not really being used for anything and recoded it for free play. But he already put that chip in there at the test just to make sure it wasn't the chip. And he was about to take the chip out, and I said, hey, wait a minute, will you sell me that chip? I mean, because I know you make them. And he's like, okay, yeah. And he only charged me like $20 for, I think it was like $20 for the chip, and only $30 for the work he did on the board and everything, even coming by. So I think it was like only, I think I gave him 60. I was like, I really appreciate for coming by and everything, because $60 to have this thing fixed, and for the chip, I felt was a steal at the time. And I had already like cleaned up everything, replaced the parts that needed replaced. I got the flippers actually off his website, the replacement flippers. I put LED lights in all this in this machine, so it's a lot brighter and everything. There's a kind of a weird flickering issue with the LEDs, and I think it might be just because of the cheap LEDs I used. And I remember at the time, some of the LEDs, when I was putting them in there, wasn't working, and I made a video about this. It's like, well, the incandescent bulbs are working, but the LED lights aren't. And it turned out the LED bulbs I was using, it mattered what was the positive and what was the negative, where it didn't with the incandescent. So I wound up kind of rewiring some of the sockets, so it was the right polarity for those LEDs I had. Now, in retrospect, I maybe should have gotten better LEDs. I think that would get rid of this blinking problem. But even the guy who worked on my machine said, yeah, every LED I've seen, it flickers. So I don't know if it's just something weird where it doesn't matter the bulb, or if it's just because of the cheap bulbs, the cheap LED bulbs. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole story and rundown about me getting this machine. Now, Zachariah, the company, yeah, hello, the company itself is actually based in Italy. And they made pinball machines from around the late, maybe around 1974 through 80 something, 86, 87, somewhere around there. And then they kind of disbanded, stopped making machines. This machine's from 1983, so it's kind of right in the middle of all that. Another feature of Zachariah machines that you really don't see on a lot of other pinball machines is the back glass itself. It's kind of multi-layered. A lot of pinball machines these days, and even within the last 20 years maybe even, are just a piece of glass with a translite, and that's it. This has got the piece of glass with the artwork painted on it. It's kind of scratched off here a bit, especially like where that guy's head is. It's most notable there. But you take that glass off, and then there's kind of like a 3D plasticky image behind that. And then there's even a neon light that goes around the corner that creates, it's a really nice lighting effect. Even in the middle here, we have a hole with chase lights going around in the middle with a nice mirror effect. And it looks really sharp with the LED lights. It didn't look half as good with the incandescent lights. It was like, you could barely see that, but I like the way it looks now. Oh, another thing that was actually wrong with this machine, I totally forgot about it, was that fourth display didn't work. And it took me quite a while to get one working, because you can't exactly buy specific Zachariah displays. This one had to be, I think it was like a, I don't know, it was like a Midway, I can't remember, not Midway, like a Williams one from a certain time period, but then it needed to be resoldered a certain way. Can't exactly remember, but I got it working. It was one of the first things I got working on this thing. So yeah, I think, so Zachariah, Italy, they have a whole bunch of machines, very similar in layout to this, in the colored flippers and everything, and with the multi-layered black glass. This is honestly one of the best back glasses in all of pinball, really. They did go the extra mile in the back glasses. And you can see that as compared to like the Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man behind me, where it is just an image. This isn't a translite though. That is painted on the glass, so there's that. But then you know, if you break it, you're screwed. Whereas with like a stern, a newer stern or something like that, if you break the glass, the translight most probably won't be damaged. The translights are easy to reproduce or alter or get different versions of them. That kind of thing. I think I've talked a lot about this. One of the reasons I made this video now is because one of the next videos I'm having coming up, I'm going to have some more gameplay on this thing. Because when I did the Star Trek video, I decided to do that on all these machines. So all those machines are coming up. But the Time Machine will be the next one. Now, I might be putting up a pickups video before that. Don't know. But, yeah, in the long haul, I even had somebody asking me if I was interested in selling this. But I really am not. And for, well, let's see, it was around $300 and a couple $100 worth of work put into it. I'd say it's worth it. One of the things I didn't mention was they made about 2,400 of these. So there's a fair amount out there, I think. But how many survived, I don't know. I don't know how many survived, but I have seen 2 other time machines since I bought this one. So they're out there. But yeah, like the machine. One of the first machine. Well, it is the first machine I ever got. I can't see getting rid of this. I really can't. Actually, I can't really see getting... If I had to get rid of any of these 4, it might be the Hyperball, but even I don't want to do that at this point. I still like the Hyperball. That's a unique machine. But again, I'm just going off on a weird tangent, so I think I better end this video. Thanks. I think it was Jaden B for the question. If you have your own question, I have a link to the form. You can fill out the question and send it to me. If you don't fill it out in the form and you ask it in the comments, I probably won't make a video of it, but because it's easier for me just to go on the Google Drive and see what questions there are. But thanks everyone for watching. Wow, this turned out to be a long video, didn't it? See y'all next time. Bye.